Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a bunch of the rejects with us tonight with a very, very special guest. But before we get to the guest, let me introduce the other rejects with me tonight. We'll start with you, Julia, Cosmic Peach. What is going on? Let everybody know who you are, just in case the new listeners have no idea.
Thanks for having me, of course, Nick. I'm Julia. I have the Cosmic Peach podcast available on any podcast buffet, wherever you're listening to podcasts, and Patreon if you want some extra stuff. But one of my favorite places to be is right here with the Occult Rejects, and I can't wait for this one. It's going to be great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to this myself, and always a pleasure to have you. Always appreciate you joining us, Julia. Definitely go check out that Patreon. She does make it worth it. So go check it out.
Thank you.
Of course. And Brooke, we got Brooke from Dark, Florida. She's been on the show before. Brooke, please let everybody know what your deal is and where they can find your amazing work as well.
Yeah. You can find me at Dark Florida Podcast on all social media, or Brooke Moreland. We get into all things weird and strange in the Sunshine State and beyond. And just so happy to be back. I love Brittany and everybody here. And thanks for having me, Nick.
Of course. No, thank you. And I appreciate it. And definitely go check out her show. She even had, like, for just my opinion, she had me on, and she's really not too into the occult. And she actually asked a lot of good questions. So I highly suggest to go check it out. And now we'll go over to JJ Vance, not the vice president. Sir, please let everybody know what your deal is.
Howdy, Nick. Appreciate the invite as always, sir. JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president. And looking forward to the conversation, fellow occult rejects and new occult reject Brooke. I believe we haven't met till tonight, and looking forward to the conversation there. Britt, nice to meet you there, ma'am, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, sir. And last but not least, before we get to the guest, Ethan Indigo, please let everybody know what your deal is.
Peace, everybody. Wonderful to be here. Thanks, Nick, for putting this together and having me on. Excited to hear Britt's ideas and experiences. I am a writer, so I have an article on Occult Research Institute I just dropped, and here and there books and articles and so on and so forth. So on all the social media, of course. And thanks, you guys.
Thank you very much, sir. And finally, to the guest. Today's guest is Brittany Barbieri, and she is a seasoned cryptozoologist, ufologist, and paranormal investigator with over 20 years of experience exploring the unexplained. She currently stars as the lead cryptozoologist on Discovery Channel's Lost Monster Files, where she investigates legendary creatures using modern science and technology. She got a whole bunch of other things under her belt that I'll let her tell everybody. So, Brittany, please let everybody know, and thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome. Please let everybody know, I guess, like, where they can find your stuff and everything else that you like to plug before we get into it.
Okay. Nick, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's really a pleasure to be here and get to meet everybody. I'm very excited about being on here tonight. So currently on Discovery Channel with Lost Monster Files, but my work does go back further than that. Some of the more recent ones, I was with Demi Lovato on her Unidentified on Peacock, as well as UFO Witness with Ben Hansen, who's my investigative partner. And then also I was on Night of Terror with Jack Osborne, and I got to go to the amazing Virginia City, which was incredible to get to work up there and showcase my theory in the paranormal and in the strange. So it was really fun, but my work does go back 21 professionally plus years, and then further back just to start into the field of all of it. So I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to talk about the strange and weird.
Awesome. Now, what is it that maybe just let people know, like, kind of like, what is it like maybe you specialize on more? I mean, I know like the paranormal and cryptid and UFO stuff. Would you say maybe more on the cryptid, or what is kind of like your specialty right now that you're more focused
on? It's honestly cryptids was really what got me into this because of my animal background growing up. So cryptozoology is really where my heart and passion is first and foremost. I became a ufologist later in life just due to being into the paranormal. You get to integrate with other people, and I really wanted to dive further because Jalen Hynek was like a superhero to me when I was a kid. I just thought he was so amazing. But the paranormal too, growing up, I was born in Tucson, Arizona, and then grew up in Estes Park, Colorado. near the Stanley Hotel. So we used to go there and have they used to do all holiday specials and stuff. So hearing about ghosts and activities like that growing up my whole life, my parents were no stranger to it and kind of encouraged us to stay open-minded to it all. So I would have to say that the top tier would probably be cryptids, and then I would say ghosts, and then UFOs for me.
Okay, awesome.
Do you have a favorite? Because I love the Mothman personally.
Yeah, nice.
Favorite cryptid?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Sasquatch. There's not even a doubt.
Oh,
in my
really?
head.
Okay.
That's my
right.
baby. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love that big
started out
hairy man.
researching Mothman because it's the Point Pleasant disaster or whatever. So, but yeah, I love Sasquatch too. There was recently something I watched. I can't remember what it was, but in some national park, maybe it was Yellowstone, they say that a Sasquatch took a little boy and he's never been seen again. And they did this whole big documentary on it. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's kind of stuff really interests me too.
Yeah.
Is that the Dennis Martin case, Great Smoky Mountains National Park?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, that's an interesting case, huh?
Mm-hmm. Those ones always really interest me when it comes to the alleged Sasquatch taking a child or taking a person. Those cases always were very interesting to me because sometimes if you look deeper, it ended up just being a fabricated lie that they used as a mystery to hide the body type deal.
Sure.
So it goes really deep in some of those forests and parks, and it gets dark really fast, which Brooke, the darker side of things, but it can get dark real fast. And I think people like to use the cop out of aliens and Sasquatch with the mythical, magical element to it to kind of hide some dark secrets.
But do you think it's possible though for that could have happened though, right? He got abducted by a Sasquatch.
Personally, I don't believe that, just based off of the actual indigenous history of Sasquatch and that type of creature. It would be extremely abnormal behavior for something like that, unless it felt the child was in harm and it was taking the child to protect the child, because there's no actual documented case of any Sasquatch doing anything to a child except these one-off crazy tales that have no merit. So for me, if you go by just indigenous or the historical value of the wild man or the Sasquatch through native, it's always been a very heavy respect, especially towards children. So for me, no, but who knows?
Do you think it could be alien? So take Bigfoot out of it. Do you think it could have to do with an alien abduction or something? Because it's in those areas with high deposits of granite and quartz and cave systems. Could it be more extraterrestrial?
Well, in the Dennis Martin case, go ahead, Britt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, in the Dennis Martin, the Dennis Martin case, they did have an eyewitness that saw a very hairy looking man or creature. I tend to lean towards feral human in this situation, but it's very bizarre because the Green Berets from Fort Campbell come in and special forces come in.
That's
the
my
part
thing
I don't
is
like.
the green
Right.
beret thing.
Makes it a little weird.
Because if it was just a hairy crack-headed guy out in the middle of the woods, why would
They exist? They exist.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Send in the Green Berets.
Green berets?
Right. It's a little.
There's just a hairy
overkill.
crackhead?
It's
Vance.
overkill.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They actually told the local sheriff department to stand down right? If I'm not mistaken, the sheriff department had showed up and the Green Beret were there. And he told the head sheriff department, it is time for you to step down. We're taking over. You need to go back. And to me, that was the part that I didn't like, because they completely closed the site and told local sheriff department to step down, that they were taking over. So the government was taking over. And to me, that's strange. To me, it's okay, well, what else is going on out there? That's weird.
I think it gets even weirder in that case of Dennis Martin. I think it was the National Park Service who had the lead on it. There was sheriff's departments involved. National Park Service also got the stand down from these Green Berets. They wanted nothing to do with whatever they were doing. And I think the lead investigator later from the Park Service, the detective, would later commit suicide.
Yes.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up.
No, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, I heard that too.
Yep.
See, that's
common though. That happens a lot in a lot of those
totally
cases,
normal.
which is ridiculous.
Totally normal.
It's not ridiculous. It's
Right?
just a couple months later, that guy's gone, fell off taking a selfie of himself on a mountain.
Maybe he
unalived
Hillary.
himself. Oh my gosh.
I there are some cases where I'm not sure if it's extraterrestrial involvement, but I do believe in some cases where there are possible time portals that open up and shift. And there are a few cases where kids and individuals have actually gone missing and come back. And they're like, this is really where am I? And there's time missing. So it's not always extraterrestrial. There are elements to our own atmosphere that with different types of minerals create these types of energy and frequencies. And we do have time overlap scenarios. And sometimes these kids and individuals do go through portals and come back through a different area, which is very fascinating to me. It's another area I study.
Like Bermuda Triangle type stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
they go in and either they disappear forever or they pop back up and like years have gone by, but they're the same age. That happened actually to a couple of kids in Alaska, I think, and they blamed a Bigfoot, like, oh, the Bigfoot took them and whatever. But they came back like 10 years later and they were the same age in Alaska. I swear to God, this is real. You can look it up. I'm not making it up. Like these two kids, they went missing. 10 years later, they show back up. They were the same age, everything. They blamed a Bigfoot for taking them, but it's probably more like what Britt's saying, and they had like some kind of a weird time slip thing that happened.
Like,
yeah, and they're just trapped in it.
Would Bigfoot have like cryogenics like set up like lab to keep the kids the same age? Like how does you know what I'm saying? Like how does
it's like Narnia where they go into like a different dimension and time moves differently there.
Yeah.
So the aging process could be slowed down or advanced, just depending.
And we have certain mountains here that do that. If you go to certain peaks in certain regions, due to the way the atmosphere and the minerals sit, the time you can actually take a clock and watch your watch slow. It'll actually pull the needle and slow it down. So it's weird that we have different areas on our planet that create that.
Yeah, Flight of the Navigator. I was thinking that movie.
Oh,
actually.
that is such a good movie.
I love that movie as a kid.
Oh my God. And The Last Starfighter. Okay. That was another.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. He played the video game.
Yes. And he was like, it was actually a challenge to find the best fighter. Come on. Who doesn't want to be in that movie?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. Something I did want to ask, I guess we'll kind of, if you don't mind, go here a little bit. And I do think it's something that JJ and I have even mentioned before, or ideas. And I think even Lisa has said it herself. When it comes to these national parks, do you think they're actually kind of they're being kept, kind of secret,
cordoned off?
Yes, and there's things maybe going on.
Do I believe that?
Yeah,
100%. I believe that only because of Kincaid's case, and that was one that I studied with the Grand Canyon pretty intensely. And if you follow the trail, you start to learn that how and why it got protected, and the area that it's protected, and why you're not allowed to go there is the exact location in which things were taken from. So for me, I do think there is some protection there because there's a lot of places you can't even go in the woods, like in some of these private parks for a reason. So yes, I do.
I heard there was a guy who went in the Grand Canyon looking for something and he found a cave that had all these hieroglyphics.
That's Kincaid.
Oh, is that it? Is that the one?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that boggles my mind.
He actually found mummified Egyptians in there and Egyptian ruins. And he was an amateur archaeologist that worked kind of like as a third party to the Smithsonian at the time. So on his first mission, he went back and told them about what he had uncovered, and they were like so excited. And don't forget, this was high exploration era. So he was like, let's do this. They said, let's go back, verify it. We're going to send 2 professionals with you. Ended up like 5 professionals from the University of New York went. They all identified everything, saw everything. The next thing he knew, second trip later, Smithsonian comes in with crates, tells him his time is no longer needed. Thank you so much for your work. We're going to take it from here. And that they would be in touch to let him know that he could come and see his artifacts on display and come see them in the vault, blah, blah, blah. So 6 months later, they basically smeared his name and all artifacts went missing.
Typical.
Like to this day, like nobody knows where they are.
To this day.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's like, oh, well, I called the Smithsonian. I'm like, you understand? Has anyone ever seen the vault of the Smithsonian? That's a whole different tier, whole other tier. Like the people that are working at the Smithsonian they're not going to be like, oh, hey, Joe. Yeah, let me put you through to 4. Talk about the artifact. Like, this is not going to
Mhm.
happen. Most of the artifact stuff, you have to have a certain clearance to even go back to see, unless you're doing a show and it's a production in Nat Geo or whatever the case is. Like, they're very particular. So it's funny to me.
Well, it makes me wonder because there are so many like ancient aliens episodes that mention, the Grand Canyon. That someone in the comments just mentioned how it's probably evidence of it's like been eroded by water and like a massive flood went through there. But also it's where the Native Americans talk about the ant people bringing them in and taking them to like some inner earth type of environment. And that's always really fascinated me too, because there are depictions of like these big, I don't know, like insectoid looking people, praying mantis type people that took the Native Americans in for the flood. And so the Grand Canyon to me is like one of the most spiritual places on earth, I think.
Yeah. It's an incredible place. And it's interesting to me that after that happened, Smithsonian took everything, the government stepped in and made it a private park. And you can no longer go into certain areas. And I want to say it was the early 2000s or end of the 90s. I want to say it was early 2000s. Investigators went in there and they're like, we're taking a kayak, we're taking a canoe. They found the steps. That Kincaid had talked about. And a Black Ops helicopter came in and yelled at them to leave the premise like right away.
Gosh.
And they had it all on camera. They had it all
Wow.
documented,
Wow.
had it all on camera. So they're like, if you think they're not covering something up, they're covering something up. And what you were mentioning too, Julia, those were by the Hopi tribe with the ant people.
Yeah, the Hopi
Mhm.
people.
Yeah. Which are really cool.
well,
I love those stories. It's amazing.
Yeah,
stuff.
me too. Well, there's a case I want to ask you about, unless anybody else had any other questions, but
Well, I'd like
it's-
to make one comment on the Grand Canyon mysteries. It
go
makes you
ahead.
wonder what the Mormons know. They were the first, Americans out there, right? Setting up shop in that area in the mid 1800s, we'll call it circa
That's right.
1850.
Mhm.
Yeah. And what did they
Joseph
find
Smith.
and see before anybody else?
Right.
got
What do they got
involved?
their hands on, right?
Exactly. But they're not sharing with anyone.
Right. Took the secrets to his grave with the golden tablets. But
Yeah.
I believe
a
they built
case-
a train track to that point around the Grand Canyon. There's supposedly remnants of that as far as them taking out objects. I heard. I don't know if you know anything about that, Brittany, but
I don't know anything about the train tracks. That's actually fascinating to me. Yeah, that's cool.
one of the remnants supposedly
Of still being there.
Mm.
well of them, having a reason to build a train in to maybe get stuff would be
To load
the
it out.
likely scenario.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. It was interesting because even in Kincaid's personal writings, he talked about how the crates looked, and it was like exactly the same protocol. So, he worked for them, and there is documentation of his name in certain periods of that time within the Smithsonian as just a, like an enthusiast who was looking into things and an amateur archaeologist. But unfortunately, when you make a discovery like that and they don't want it getting out, we're in the wrong hands. They just, looks like in the past, and I will say allegedly, it's like a smear.
I wonder if it was just, simple kind of, for lack of a better term, whitewashing, that they were trying to get rid of the notion of the indigenous people being exceptional in some way or another, or if it was something more. What do you think? Because it seems like the Smithsonian is notorious for doing this, at least all across the Americas, right? Not just in the Grand.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I think it has to do with the story of Christopher Columbus and everything in which and who was here first, going back in
Yep.
history. And I think that for them, they have this certain type of story that they are trying to push as a narrative. And when these artifacts come out, it shows that we were way more advanced as civilization goes to travel and find new territory and land. And it would also show that the Egyptians actually went much, much further out and traveled much further for trade or new land or for whatever purpose, for the sake of whatever. And according to their historical stories, it doesn't line up. And so for me, I think it's more or less keeping a certain story in place, and anything that doesn't follow suit to that story, they make it go away.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, within the last 100 years, especially in Egypt, that narrative has been pushed. So if they're here, that breaks what they've been pushing for the last 100 years. And especially with what's come out with the pyramids, I don't think that they were just giant sarcophaguses. So to your point, did they make it over here? And the Smithsonian's
Sure.
are notorious for hiding the bones. I mean, there's so many old articles you can
Yes.
find where they found these giant skeletons, and the Smithsonian comes in and they're never seen again. So I think exactly, what are they hiding?
Mhm.
I think
Well,
it's probably
that's-
just like a sub branch of like a 3-letter agency, honestly.
100. Oh my
It
God. I
has
was
its
waiting for
black level
somebody
for
to
sure.
say it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It does
Well-
have its black ops level.
I can add some context to this 3-letter agency that started the Smithsonian. It's called the SOC, the Society of Cincinnati. It's the secret society that started America, and they were deeply interested in the mounds. At some point in time, they did start hiding these giants, but I think that was the Anglo influence. So, at the same time, the colonial folks were moving across the Midwest and uncovering all these giants in the Adena mounds, the Ohio Valley areas, all the way over to like Minnesota, even Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, even some in New York, Virginia.
Yep.
Louisiana.
Like literally all over the U.S.
well, these
There
were
were
these were
documented
the
cases.
specific. Yeah, they were all. Yeah, no, they were all over the U.S. for sure. No, but these the
Yeah.
ones that I'm referring to are the Adena ones. These are the ones that had the giants in them, and those were
Mhm.
being uncovered at the same
Ooh.
time that they came up with Darwinian evolution. So and dinosaurs. So no longer, to counteract what these new discoveries were, right? So this crown history that we live under today with the 1492 nonsense. It's all the same. It's all the same mess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed. I agree with that. It's
Yeah.
I don't think they expect people to be smart enough to start finding the holes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it sounds
Right,
terrible, but it's like they're
That's-
creating
that's
a
accurate.
foundation that they don't want a break in, because the moment you get a break in that foundation, or your people all of a sudden think, oh, you are lying to us. Well, then what else are you lying to? You lose control of your
Right.
masses, and so
100.
to me it's always been such a, growing up out west, and especially in Arizona and stuff, the tales of the Lovelock Indians with
Yeah.
the giants out there in the Lovelock Cave, and hearing all that story and knowing that story so well. And then when all of them were unearthed and you could go to the museum and see the giant skulls, see the giants, see their sandals, see everything all the way down to the red hair. And I met a gentleman who actually had a red-headed giant in a sarcophagus, like in a casket, basically, in a building he bought out in Nevada. And it's fascinating to me, because it's like, why cover up the story of giants? Like, why? It doesn't matter. We know we have giants even in societies now. It's just it's either a birth defect or there's a lineage there or whatever. Like, I don't understand why the secrecy to giants, but it's been going on for a really long time. And I studied
Sure.
that even out on Catalina Island. I mean, they smeared
Yeah.
him too. And it's
The Wrigley
constant.
family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's been a constant smear campaign on when you find something that doesn't fit the narrative. So they'll
Right.
remove it, they erase it, and let's not talk about it anymore. And when you go into Smithsonian, so I dug deep into the giants just of Lovelock and the Smithsonian connection to the Lovelock caves, right?
Mhm.
When they stepped in and said all the bodies have to be removed and there's Native Americans here and all this stuff. And the natives were like, half of those aren't even ours. Like, what are you talking about? Those were the giants
is-
that our family fought off.
This is NAGPRA, the
Mhm.
92 NAGPRA Act.
Yes.
Yep.
Remember anything that
Yeah.
they came across and said it was Native American ruins, all had to be buried and covered up and removed, right? Out of respect for the Native people. So they would sometimes bring in the natives to help, whatever. So long story short.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say they just updated that NAGPRA Act. In fact, we just learned about that from Dr. Greg Little, who I like to call the Mound Doctor. He
Did
was
they?
telling us about that last week. Yeah, so all these Adena tablets have now been hidden and returned to tribes and stuff. So what I'm getting at with these NAGPRA acts, they do more to hide the history than they do to preserve anything.
100%.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I remember even here in Florida in St. Augustine, when they had the Native Americans on display under the glass, you could see them.
Right.
The Seminoles were not upset at all that their ancestors, like there were some Seminoles that were like, no, look and honor how we bury our people. Because they were almost towards the surface. They weren't very deep because we live by the water. Everything was low. And so they weren't like ashamed. They just wanted more respect. They wanted that honor. So it was cool to them to see their people being their ancestors, more or less, in their tribes being so honored and having this beautiful display of showcasing the burial. Like, so if you go to Peru, some of those kings are still on display, literally sitting in there as an honor, as like an honor
Sure.
piece. Like when I was in Peru, I got to go to one of the temples and it was super cool because they're like, we're monitoring the site constantly. The archaeologists were monitoring the site constantly with everything. So there's no worry of grave robbers in this one particular area. And so they said it's more or less to respect the death of this king, like this high king or whatever his name was. And I don't want to say king, but that's basically what his placement was because I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But he was still buried, and you could see the llamas. You could still see everything. You could see his whole dressing of what he was buried in. And it was to honor and show, because they believe taking him away from where his burial site was to like basically disturb him, and he would forever be in an unrest. So it was very fascinating to learn that from that little part in Peru. Yeah. And then you go to other places where they completely take him out. They're doing stuff to the tombs there, and I'm like, but then I got these people that are, and I understand grave robbers are a big deal and a huge thing. So it's just fascinating. It's literally all over. But Smithsonian Quarterly, in their own documentations for employees, annually or quarterly, one of the two, I can't remember. I think it was maybe annually. They have to go through and identify giant bone remains in their crates. It's in their paperwork. It's in there.
Sure. They have a few digs in the late 19th century. They have a few documented Smithsonian digs where they discover giant human skeletons. So it's in their own studies too. Ethnological reports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
It's wild because it's just when I found out they started hiding all these Adena tablets. I just found that out last week, and I've seen a lot of these things. I grew up Mormon, so mounds and the contents of mounds were a big part of my childhood, and going to see these things in various sites, traveling places and whatnot. But it's all basically hidden now. The Lovelock Museum is long gone. The Catalina Island Museum is long gone. They had an island. The Wrigley family had a museum there for decades.
Yeah, now they have like the Catalina Island museum, and they show some artifacts that had been pulled up that you can see, like the giant bowl and things like that. But the actual like real dig pictures and all the stuff has been cut and cropped to like a perfect way, so like you can see that. And they still have some of the old pictures in the back of the museum. They still have some of that stuff back there that if you like ask, they're really cool about it. But yeah, I mean,
special password.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Catalina is interesting enough with all the UFO
Brittany.
and
Go in there and say Brittany. That's the password.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Well, there is a giant. I think there, well, at least there used to be a giant. I'll phrase it that way. The last time I'd seen it in 10, 11 years ago, it's probably around that. So the museum in Philadelphia, the Mutter Museum.
Yes.
It's a medical oddities museum, but the giant skeleton, it's a 7 foot or 7 foot tour, came from an Adena mound in northern Kentucky.
Yeah, they said they had him on display because they wanted to show, and correct me if I'm wrong, the pituitary gland. That's the one.
Yeah, they claimed it was a medical oddity. That's how they're getting around it, right? But the little note card says, the little note card at the base of it, where the description of what you're looking at says located in an Adena mound in northern Kentucky, and I forget the date. But
what was wrong with its pituitary gland?
So that's
huge.
Yeah, so like there's when you look into it, basically, and you get it in animals, you get it in almost any species, but it can, I believe it's the I never pronounce this correctly, pituitary gland. It controls your growing. It controls your growing. So whether you grow really super tall or you stunt, so that's why like we have some in history that get to like 8.5, 9. What's that gentleman's name? He's in Ripley's. My son is obsessed with him, with his height, and he was like 8'11", but he had the same problem. So a lot of times we get this in history, and it's like when people first started finding Viking bones, they were like, oh my God, Vikings are so large. And really, to the year and to what our height would have been, Vikings were massive in height, but that's relative to us. Like Vikings really were like 6'1" to 6'5" in general. And the average height back then would have been like 5'2" to 5'6" for us. So it was like a giant to us in the sense of the Native Americans. But when Leif Erikson even came over and met with some of the natives, he was stunted to their height. Even some of the natives were much taller than him that were reaching up to 6.5 and 7 feet. So it's fascinating. Like people misinterpreted some of those original sightings as he had come in contact with Bigfoot, but he did write in a particular journal in like I want to say it was like 948 or 950. He talked about coming into contact with these hairy men that stank really bad. And he had to offer a peace offering with them in order to cross onto the land. So he did write about that, and it was completely different from the natives. And he talked about how the natives coexist in the land with them, and he has to respect that. So,
well, what do you think? Because you said something earlier. You said, I don't know why they've decided they have to hide the giant skeletons. I mean, I have my own theories about that, but
Okay.
I'm curious as to what you think. Like, why do you think it's significant for them to start hiding these giant skeletons?
What, for me?
Mm-hmm.
I think it honestly goes back to the introduction of the Nephilim. I think that's a lot of part of the history they would like to
wonderful
erase.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, so I do firmly believe that, because we have a lot of ancient text that you really can't cover up, and when you look into that, there's a lot of past history with the Nephilim and the giants and stuff that remained here. I mean, no matter what religion you're from, every religion speaks of these giants in different names across the globe. So
yes,
it's, again, schooling, religion, all of these things really came hard in the 1920s and really started making an impact on everyone to brainwash us in one way and erase what had already been done. And so it's interesting now to start to see where what they used to consider pseudoscience and talking about the Nephilim or talking about these parts of our history isn't so crazy anymore when a lot of stuff is coming to surface. So,
well, and I also think, you can obviously add on to this if you like, but I think part of the reason why they have to hide it is because, for lack of a better term, these were spiritual beings. These Nephilim giants were even said to maybe have powers, like magical abilities,
superpowers.
Yeah, I mean, like it's said that they were mystical, and so there are hieroglyphics from Egypt where it shows like a person and then like a huge giant, like in comparison, and so they've hidden all this, and I personally think that's where a lot of the cryptids come from, is some weird intermingling stuff with these Nephilim beings, but that's just my opinion. Like the Bigfoot, for example.
Yeah,
that's
that's a good theory.
What'd you say, JJ?
How about Mothman?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like a Nephilim being fucked a moth, and then there you go. That I'm being dramatic,
spotted on a mound, by the way. Spotted on a mound.
It all happened this one romantic night on a mound.
Yep.
But I mean, think about it though. They talk about the Bigfoot as being like a giant, right? It's like a half man, half whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think they have to hide the Nephilim.
Sure, it's an interesting thought when you look at these giants from the Adena Mounds, because they do have some medical oddities to them. They have double rows of teeth, was one of them,
and six toes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they do have some different features, right?
Yeah, extremely different features.
Something I wanted to ask you, Brittany, with your experience is related to this. It used to be that these subjects were pretty separated, UFOs and Bigfoot and paranormal and cryptids and so forth, and psychic phenomena and all these ideas. But it seems like they're all kind of coming together into maybe not a correspondence, but it seems that they happen in frequency together, if you know what I mean. And people are starting to look at these things that is maybe not being from the same origins, but somehow related. Could you break down what you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so when you look at cryptids or the paranormal, like I always like to say, is a tree. Like when somebody says, "Oh, I'm into the paranormal," I go, "Okay, so what part of the paranormal are you into?" Because the paranormal as a whole is like a giant tree and it has a ton of branches on it. And so for me, that's how I've always categorized everything. So for me, cryptozoology was a tangible physical creature, like an animal that we hadn't fully discovered yet that we needed to identify. And then there were supernatural beings that we were taught and we learned about. And what were those supernatural? Were they interdimensional? Did they come from the sky? Were they here before we were here? You know, were they literally, this was their planet and we were created onto their planet. We had to learn to coexist with them. So for me, I've always filed them in their own separate filing cases, I guess you could say. And there have been in the past some overlapping, like Mothman in particular was a major overlap between cryptozoology and ufology, because when the sighting first happened, it was believed to be, and the sightings really had a giant uptick in the 60s for this alleged Mothman creature. But the original first sighting was very much that of an appearance of like a raptor, a very large bird of prey. And so when cryptozoology got involved, they were trying to figure out, is it a bird that got off track? You know, what exactly are we looking at? Then ufology got involved because they're like, well, we also have an uptick of UFO sightings. Is it possible these individuals may have seen an extraterrestrial being? Like, we have to look into this because Hopkinsville and all these different cases were really prominent at the time. So everyone's really trying to dive in and figure out what's going on. So for me, I feel like we're living in a very supernatural world that we were told doesn't exist and isn't real. And when you're open to it and you start to realize, I think you're just more open to seeing things. So people that see a Sasquatch and then see an orbs or possibly a UFO, it's not that it happens all at the exact same time. It may happen within the span of 20 minutes or an hour, but they might just be so open now because they've seen that Sasquatch, because it really shifts your it alters your whole reality for a minute.
Sure.
And I think it just makes you more aware of what else is going on around you. Does that make sense? So I think it's more or less like once you have one account, you've now transcended psychologically into a whole nother world, and it really alters your reality and you start to see things that you would have been more closed off to. So I think that's where the overlap starts to happen. Not that they're necessarily all connected. Like, I know the theory of aliens that put Bigfoot here, those were like the alien workers, right? The miners and stuff on this land. I don't necessarily believe that. I think honestly, extraterrestrials have been here far way back, and I think a lot of them live in the ocean and have lived in the ocean and live in different parts of the canyons where it's very untouched and very rural. But I just think that this planet had a lot more to it and has been purposefully covered up and hidden from us. In some areas, they have to really cover up the best way they can. And how do you do that? You government contract it, and if you're caught there, you're shot on sight. That's my opinion.
Sure. What's your thoughts there, Britt, on have you seen any of this relationship between these cryptid sightings and mound sites? Are you familiar with any of this information that a lot of these cryptids are seen around mound sites, not just Mothman?
I have followed some of that, although I will admit I didn't dive into it too deeply. I think it's more or less, again, I don't want to say spiritual. I think frequency. That's the word I want to say. A frequency of vibration that comes from some of these mounds. Yeah. Like in Sedona, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Sedona has high frequency, high amounts of energy that pulses from that area. And a lot of these are spiritual beings in a sense, just like if you go to Native people talking about the Sasquatch will show itself to you to say, you've taken too much from the woods and I'm making myself known. It's like the protector, the guardian of the forest. Like, that's its job. And the Native people knew that and respected that. So for me, I just think even with the mounds, those were sacred mounds. So I wouldn't be surprised that Sasquatch would be around in remembrance to maybe, I know this sounds crazy, but if it's more of an animal or even a primate, right? They bond and imprint on people. So whoever was buried in that mound, it's possible that generations of that Sasquatch were bound to those people and they might just show up out of respect. So there's different things there.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? So it's not always like, oh, the aliens just spit out a Bigfoot.
Right.
Like for me, I just think that sometimes there's unseen relationships and spiritual connections that we know we can make in certain ways in life that I think if they're animal or even human, they're going to have the same connection. And that's a burial site. And we don't know what's in there that meant something to them.
No, it's an interesting concept. I really hadn't considered that because there does seem to be an extensive pattern with these mound sites and cryptids. I like the window area kind of notion. I've toyed around with that because these are a lot of these Adena mound sites specifically. There is documented evidence. There's significant changes in energy in that area versus the surrounding areas based upon U.S. geological surveys. So that is something that I've considered as well in that. But like Cincinnati, for example, the secret society that started the Smithsonian and their operational headquarters is the Society of Cincinnati. They're the folks that started America. Their operational headquarters, is Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a big mound town, right? So there's the Loveland frog. That's a cryptid. There's the New Richmond octopus man. There's the Alms Park badger. George Washington surveyed those mounds himself in that park. So these are very important sites to these people, especially Washington and his associates there. And
there's also
for some reason years later we have all these cryptid sites, in Wisconsin Dogman. Another mound cryptid sighting, right? So
what about Serpent Mound in Ohio? That's another crazy one. And going a little bit further than Cincinnati, my hometown, Cleveland, they have their own cryptids too. They got a Loch Ness freaking monster in Lake
I didn't
Erie.
know that.
It's called Bessie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bessie's been seen a lot.
Bessie's been
That's
seen
Moses
a lot.
Cleveland.
Well, and
Society of
also
Cincinnati.
in Cleveland over Lake Erie, there are so many UFO sightings. It's crazy. I've seen one. My brother has seen one.
Right.
And, not only that, but it's like dead bodies wash up all the time. I mean, granted, there's a bunch of crime and crackheads, but it's just a
Mafia.
really, it's a weird place. Lake Erie.
No,
I think the name even kind of sums it up. But
is it still on fire?
What was on fire?
The Lake Erie. It was on fire, wasn't it?
Well, that wouldn't surprise me because you go down there to watch garbage float, literally.
Right.
But something I wanted to ask Britt about a little bit ago, it was kind of like what Ethan was saying, like where a bunch of things get like hodgepodge together, like paranormal, UFO, and or like government weirdness is hopefully you've heard of it, is the Dyatlov Pass incident. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but there are 3 main theories, and it's Yeti or like some kind of directed energy weapon, or what's the third one? Oh, UFOs. And the way that these people were found, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, people have their skin melted off, eyeballs gone, tongue gone, radiation, weirdness. Like, what are your thoughts on the Dyatlov Pass?
So that case, when I first got into like field research many moons ago, I used to think, no, they're covering up. It's totally a Yeti. This is totally Yeti, behavior. Then I looked into Yetis, which is a term that we called them. That's actually not what they call them in Nepal. So I was like, now, wait a minute. Hold on a second. What's kind of going on here? I need to know what's going on in Russia. This is weird. So when I dug into it deeper, my opinion began to change. There are a lot of tribes up there that are very cannibalistic and do not like anyone in their territory up there at all, and have warned hikers before, you don't go past a certain range. That's where those people live, and they will kill you. Like, there is no in between, right? So learning that they had been warned where they were going to be hiking and setting up was near those territories. I still am not 100% on anything, to be quite honest with you. But from the ufology standpoint of knowing when the Russians get involved with anything like this, there always seems to appear to be radioactive activity right afterwards. And I find that very fascinating because they got in right away. Yes. That to me is weird.
Like
now,
reports of ball lightning and or like weird orbs in the sky. Like,
Yep.
And they were killed on the Mountain of Death. Let's not forget that. That was the name of the mountain that they were on.
Right.
So the whole scene is ominous.
But here's the kicker. These are the little pieces that got to me, right? So how they were dressed, they fled the tents half like in their pajamas. Whatever was happening,
literally
scared them to pieces.
Nothing.
No shoes, underwear. The one kid had a coat on in his underwear. So we're talking whatever was happening fast, and they were scared for their life. That's one.
And they didn't all die at once either.
No,
they
died
were
at chased
times.
down.
They died in like 3 areas.
Like a chase down attack. This is the part that I went, this doesn't make sense to me. Make this make sense. was the tent that they were in, the two of them that we were in, cut from the inside out to get out of the tent. You have a zipper. Why are you cutting from the other end to get out of your tent? So to me, that was, okay, the incision was from the inside and out. They're running from something. What are they running from? What's happening? Avalanche also was thrown into the mix, I think in 2008, 2009, when people were reopening it. They're like, oh, I think it's an
Right,
avalanche.
because avalanches melt your eyeballs out, and
Exactly. It totally does that to
your
everyone.
tongue's missing, and
Totally
you're
normal.
crushed, all the bones in your body. And what's crazy to me about cutting it from the inside to get out, no shoes on, in your underwear, it's like 1,000,000,000 degrees below.
Yeah.
Like literally, if you spit before your spit touches the ground, it's freaking frozen. Like that's how
Yeah.
cold it is. And
Yeah.
they're out there in their underwear. So
Yep.
I talked to my cousin about this, and he was like, an alien popped up in the tent with him. Like, what would you do? Cut and run, right? But that's the weirdness around it, because it's like a lot of people go UFO. A
Yep.
lot of people go
Because of the energy that was found
Yeti.
afterwards.
Right,
Yep.
right. Yeah.
That's why they just immediately, because of what was found at the site for radioactive, it was considered a radioactive site after this. But that was after the other investigators got involved, and Russia had already done their cleanup. So for me, if it's a Yeti
Yeah,
or
there
you're
was a
hearing
lot
these
of-
sounds, you would want to cut from the opposite side. If you're in a tent and you're fighting it, and a grizzly is coming through your tent on one side, but you can cut out the back and run straight up the bushes and get away because he's distracted by your camp, you're going to do that. So in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe that's so it'd be a Yeti type of creature that they're dodging from. But you have one whose eyeballs, nothing else was done to its face, but the eyeballs were removed. The one on the hill with the other one that had lacerations to their back, like bear claws to their back, their partner to that person who was face down, his tongue was severed completely, like perfect in half, not ripped out, not just cut, completely cut off. That's why I immediately went, now,
100.
is this a tribe? Is this the tribe? Is this the, what is it?
Well,
Was so
Well,
much.
Britt, another weird thing about this
So
is if you look into the fucking hikers, they're all KGB. So what
I
the hell
know.
is this?
Of
All
course they are. Of
KGB.
course
And
they
one
are.
stayed back. One stayed back. That guy's like, thank you, God. I had something else I had to do.
Right,
Please go
right.
away."
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
how it's literally the perfect conundrum, because you got like KGB weirdness and then like Yeti stuff, extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them had the friend's clothes on, and it was like somebody took a nibble off one of the other friends. It's like it was literally, you're talking about cannibals being up there. It's like they assumed that they started eating each other.
Mhm.
But really what could have happened is there's some weirdo cannibals that live up in that pass that came down after whatever happened and started biting big chunks out of them. I don't know. The weirdness just keeps stacking when you look at
Here's
this
a
case.
thought. Here's a thought. What if they were running experimental testing, kind of like how we have HARP? We have a lot of silent weapon testing going around, So what if they were testing a high-powered type of technology? They thought no one would be up on these mountains, right? And these hikers were up there, because I do know that there are some of these tests. And if you talk to some of the ex-military, they said it makes them go insane. It makes them, see things or feel weird or have these anxieties or whatever. So I'm wondering if the Russians were doing some type of testing and this was affecting them, and they were not acting rationally because they were hearing something. We don't know if their ears were bleeding. We don't know if their brain was doing anything, or if they were having seizures. We don't know physically what they were experiencing before. And it's possible that they were hallucinating through this, whatever testing was going on, and they basically are fleeing in different directions and died at different times. And let's just say, for the purpose of not saying it's anything extraterrestrial or cryptid, that the other tribe found these dead bodies and thought they would cut a tongue, take some eyes. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Right.
possible. It's another possible
Infrasound,
theory.
I think, is what they call that theory.
Yes. Yeah.
Infrasound, or and the other thing too is some idiot this is Smithsonian level type idiocracy going on with some of this stuff, because they said, oh, you know what probably happened? They were trying to take pictures of this ball lightning, and they fucked up and went crazy and started eating each other, and their eyeballs fell out and their tongue and all this, and they all had
Swamp
radiation
gas.
poisoning.
Yeah, don't you
They
love
were
swamp
trying
gas?
to
Yeah, swamp gas.
literally
Yes.
Made movies out of that theory, I think.
Yeah.
swamp
This
gas.
whole thing reminds me, as y'all familiar with the Yuba County 5 disappearance of those guys in their deaths?
Yes.
Mhm.
It's strikingly
it's
similar, slightly less
literally-
gruesome, maybe
Less
equally as
gruesome,
mysterious.
but similar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Similar in nature with a lot of question marks behind the
a lot of
disappearance.
mystery. I like
There's
the
a
idea of covering
episode-
things up, though. Like if things go wrong in government stuff, they want to make it paranormal looking, so folks don't, they get spooked out by it. They don't look into it further. I kind of like that idea with cattle mutilations as well.
You think
Well,
cattle
the-
mutulations are government?
Well, the
Well,
hikers,
unless they're
they veered
testing
off
weapons or
course,
something like
too.
biological stuff. Oh, good, Nick.
I just said I don't believe those are what they're presented to us, but how they're presented to us. Definitely think
Brooke,
something-
what did you say?
Well, the hikers veered off course. They weren't where they said that they were going to go. And it was too late for them to go all the way back down this ravine. So they just decided to set up camp where they were at. So this was not like a planned stop. So if it was the Soviet weapons test, there were so many gulags around there. One of the guys got arrested and released before they left for the final leg of the mission. They kind of came in on this train station in this town. I can't think of it right now. And basically they were just a little too happy. They didn't look right. And this Soviet officer thought that they were spies. Like he straight up thought they were spies, detained him for a little bit, and then released him and was basically like, get the hell out of here. You can't wait in the train station anymore. And then they veered off course. So if there was some sort of testing going on, I mean, that would be the prime location in those mountains. And Brittany, I wanted to tell you as well, there are some mounds here in Florida, right in Ocala. And to get back to your point, JJ, there are some really strange things that have happened there. I've visited them personally myself, and I've always had this just weird experiences happen there. So much so, like the energy was so bad, I've been driven out of there twice. So we'll take you there, Britt.
I love it. I've been
Yeah.
to the ones up in Crystal River. It's there's 2 mounds there, and I didn't. It's not that fun. Like I was like, okay, I've seen it. That's great. I don't like how I feel here. I just feel like I'm not wanted. Like it's a sacred place. Like you feel like this is sacred to us. You're not welcome here. Like, why are you here? This isn't for people just to trample all over.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't
So I'm
know.
always like, I'm cool.
Like they might have even been chosen those locations because they're hot spots or something, like the ley lines, diverge there. I think that, we had the old world Florida guy on, Brooke. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Oh, Marco Longo.
Yes. Yeah. And he was talking about a bunch of those places in Florida. And I honestly feel like they're just a bunch of hot spots, like where they build certain things. It's significant because our history has been erased and we don't understand it. But the cove or castle, what is it? That the guy levitated the stones.
Coral Castle.
Oh yeah.
Well,
so
it's on that ley line.
Well, and also I just saw something on Facebook today, not to diverge, but Brooke, you might find this interesting, that the wood that is described in the Bible that Noah built the ark out of is only found in Florida. Gopher wood.
Yes.
So that lends more credence to the that Garden of Eden, Florida thing. So I thought that was, we literally know nothing about our true past. It blows my mind.
We don't. And when you first hear that theory on its face, it sounds crazy. But when you read about the gopher wood and then you start learning more about it, the theory is it's up in, I know the audience will love this, but the Chattahoochee area is one of the areas in which that they suspect that the Garden of Eden was. So if you're looking for where in Florida, it's up there. And there's some really good evidence to support it. It's super interesting.
That is interesting. Strangely enough, there was
Smithsonian.
No, we're not talking about anything on here tonight, Smithsonian. We're just talking. We're just theorizing. We're cool.
Sure.
Leave us alone.
Well, I like the idea that weird stuff happens in and around mounds. That's my general theory. Weird shit happens in and around mounds, and folks do like to build on that stuff. Like Walmart, one of our nation's largest retailers, loves building on mound sites. For some
Oh
reason.
my
You-
god.
you can- in
JJ,
fact-
are you serious?
Yeah, in fact, they've even fought court battles over it. That's how adamant they were about it. So you can go to a Walmart in northern Georgia. I'm trying to remember the name of the town, northwest Georgia, and they settled the court battle with the local tribe, saying they could build on that mound site and destroy the mound, but the contents of the mound would go inside a museum inside the Walmart. So you can go get your Walmart Wally World experience and visit a mound museum at the same time.
Oh my
That's
god.
insane. Out of all the land, really? What?
Right.
Son
Right.
of a gun. Oh
And this
my
goes
God.
across the nation. I've plotted at least 21 sites that I know of that they've built stores on.
Okay,
That's
JJ.
ridiculous. That's
Intentionally.
ridiculous.
Did you find this out before or after the South Park Walmart episode where Walmart's the devil?
Never seen it, but I agree with their conclusions.
Well, I
Walmart's
mean,
the devil.
it's a really good one if you haven't seen it, the South Park Walmart episode. But it doesn't surprise me that they'd want to build on significant places like that because they have an agenda, dude.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
You know who? I mean, it's a little bit off topic, and then after this, I did want to ask you a question, Brittany. But even Hobby Lobby has actually
Shut
been
up.
known for doing some
No.
weird shit with artifacts. They collect old weird artifacts, and they've also been busted kind of finagling with fake ones, praising them for a lot of money. I'll look
Well,
into
guess
that.
what,
Not a
Nick?
lie. It's no bullshit.
Weird.
I love
Guess
Hobby
what?
Lobby. Don't tell me that.
The weird thing is, it's just like
Damn
if you're such a Catholic or a Christian, I don't know what they're. What I know it's one of those.
Christian.
Why are you collecting artifacts that are not of your religion?
Dude,
That's
listen,
weird.
Nick.
Good question.
You know where the corporate office of Hobby Lobby is? It's in Oklahoma. Okay. It's in Mustang, Oklahoma, where I used to live. I worked at the corporate office for like
Oh, shit.
7 years. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I went
Intel, go on,
Right.
Julia. Tell us more.
Right.
You got the secrets.
I only feel
Where are the
comfortable
bones?
saying this because literally they fired me because they said that I had integrity issues, but really what it was I asked for a raise and they were like, no. Anyways, I started fighting with them and they said, fuck you, and they fired me. Anyways, I feel okay saying this, but they would throw these Christmas parties every year, and I've met David Green. That's like the guy who started Hobby Lobby, and his wife, and they have some adopted kids, and they're all weird and they're all into stuff. And there was rumors that like one of them had to go to the ER because they put like a gerbil in their ass and couldn't get it
Oh,
out.
man.
And like they were
I got
all
Richard
into
Gere with that.
like,
The game was there.
dude, they were all just super rich doing weird
Nick's
rich
done.
people stuff.
Love
And
Nick.
you know, Hobby Lobby, the Christian company where you put gerbils in your ass and you fucking, you know, throw extravagant $1 million Christmas parties every year and like give out little
The artifacts up there,
crucifixes
not
and
gerbils.
Right.
but
Oh
in
So they
the
smuggle
corporate
them in.
office-
Gerbils,
Egyptian
gerbil
butt
is
plugs.
the word,
Right.
The word of the day.
in the corporate office, they do have some artifacts on display down the hallways. And you can walk
That's
like
so
as you're
weird.
going to like the
Why?
bathrooms and stuff, you can pass by them and just look at them. They collect this shit from all over the world.
See,
Like
the ones that
Asgard,
do
you're just
all the
like
people thing,
gauntlet. Like, I mean, what the fudge? Like,
Right.
that's so
I
weird
just
to
looked-
me.
I just looked in brief. They were fined $3 million for smuggling in Iraqi artifacts, likely during the second U.S.
I'm
invasion.
telling you, dude. I'm telling you.
God, I don't even want to
Right
support them
after
anymore.
they
But
put
my
the
God,
gerbil
I
in their
love their
ass.
shit.
That put like a
What
1,000
the
missiles.
fudge? I learned something new. This is amazing. I love to learn new
Yeah.
stuff. This is life changing.
So Brittany,
Friggin' No,
I did
nothing
wanna ask-
tops this now, Nick. Nothing tops this.
Oh my god.
Frickin' A.
I wanted to ask you from I guess out of all the years of experience that you've had, what is the most weirdest place for you that you've been to? And maybe if you happen to know like,
Mm.
or anything like that,
What was the last part?
or if you happen to know any history behind like the area that you're at that even makes it weirder too, or anything.
Oh my God.
Not to put you on the spot.
It really is because it's like there's so many
I was wondering if
places.
you had any mound experiences, maybe that would have. Full on.
Mound experience? No, not mound experience. I've had so many freaking weird experiences. I will say, let's talk paranormal spirits for a second. I will
Okay.
say in St. Augustine, I'll actually just share this account. This was the first time an entity, because, it's always bothered me for a long time. I have different theories on ghosts and spirits and what they are. And this particular incident shook me because not only could I see the being, but it held me and told me everything it needed to tell me of what transpired in the room. And I physically couldn't move. My friends tried to pick me up and move me, and I just started crying. I'm like, I can't. She's telling me something. So it happened in the old St. Augustine Hospital, which is down one of the cobblestone streets. And my friends and I, who they worked up there at the time and held the tours and did the tours. We stayed after hours. I would go up sometimes and partake in their tours, or maybe teach dowsing rods or whatever the case is, and just partake in some of the events up there. And this particular night, they were like, well, let's hang out afterwards. You can help us close it down. We'll lock up. I'm like, sounds great. And this was over, God, this had to be 15 years ago now. I want to say this at this time. So I'm in, we're done for the night. And the whole night, my friend was like, I'm smelling like a, kind of like a potpourri smell, like a perfume smell. And it's just following you all around. And I was like, well, I wear vanilla and cotton candy, so it ain't no way that it's me. And she's like, it's literally behind you everywhere you go. I'm like, okay. So at the end of the night, I go back in where, if you've been to this hospital, it's the secondary hospital. So it's like, they've added on to, it's a long story, but anyway, regardless. So you walk in from where you get your tickets and where the doctor's office was, where the morning room was. Then you go in where the soldiers would have been brought in beds. They would have done the surgeries right then and there. And then there was a back room to it. So I walk back into where they have the fake cot set up where they talk about where they do the amputations and all this stuff. And I literally am walking, and all of a sudden I smell the aroma so strong myself. I'm like, oh my God, I smell it now. I smell it. And I stop just because I'm like, hey, I smell it. And literally within that second, I got grabbed. And to this day, I can still see her. She put her whole, if I'm facing this way, she put her hands this way to hold me this way towards her, her face here. And she had her hair up in a bun. She had this blue dress on with kind of a high collar neck. And she's telling me, they wouldn't let me see him. They wouldn't let me see him. He died without me being able to see him. I couldn't tell him I loved him. And I'm like, who? And I'm just crying because I'm feeling all of her emotion. And my friends are in a panic. And her and her husband come over to try and grab me. And they're like, she can't move. She's like concrete. So I'm freaking out because I've never had an experience like this in my life. I'm like, what in the world? I've seen spirits. I've seen things. I've seen things I can't explain, but this was physical touch, a person holding me, telling me all this information. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what you want me to do. And I was like, are you with him? I'm trying to ask all these questions. And she's like, they wouldn't let me see him. I fought, but I wasn't his wife. They wouldn't let me see him. He needs to know that I love him. And I'm like, what in God's name is freaking happening right now? So she lets me go because I said to her, I will do everything I can to try and find him and let him know. I will do everything because I'm like, what the hell? This guy's been dead since a long time. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, oh my God. So then she releases me. She's gone. And then I could physically move. Every part of my body hurt because I was so tense from her holding me. I couldn't physically move. So my friends started researching into it, and because the fires in St. Augustine, a lot of the documentation got burned. But there was a story of a woman who went to the courts there and fought to see her soldier who she was engaged to. And they would not permit her to see him because she wasn't legally his wife. And she fought to make sure that from this point on, all fiancés could see their spouse or their soon-to-be spouse before they died because he was an amputee. And that was the only woman that we could figure out had to be her. And it took months to even find that documentation or that piece of history through individuals of just saying, was there ever a case that talked about and a fiance couldn't see a guy. And like it came from a lot of the historians up there, and they were able to find one case that we all were like, okay, I think that's it. And every time I go to that hospital and I do any investigations there, I'm always like, I'm just letting you know you can be at peace now. He knows you can be together. Everything is fine. I'm like, dear God, I hope to God they're together on the other side after all that garbage. But it was the most intense thing. So for me, out of everything I've ever experienced, that was probably the most intense because I could see her like, I'm looking at you guys holding on to me. It was the weirdest freaking thing ever. And it changed my mind. 15 years ago, I shifted. I went, there's something going on here that doesn't make sense. And they uncovered body parts under the cobblestones out there from where they did amputations. I mean, there's a lot. I worked up there pretty hardcore on a case for about 3.5 months. And then I worked a lot with the paranormal groups up there. And it just, that town, and they have their own Amityville up there too. I don't know if anybody knows about that. There is a portal to hell, and I know the neighborhood, and I can take you right to the street. And it's really cool.
What's the house called? Is it like
no? It's
Amityville?
No, nobody knows. It was kept within the historians, and it was kept within the secrets there. So this guy, it was on this one street. There's like 4 really cute homes, and it's on an old cobble street. And so like the cobble street goes through the homes, and then across the home, there's little plots of land. And like on that particular house's plot, there's like an old little barn there, or not like a barn, but a shed. And that wasn't his shed, but the new owners put it in. But in the house, the man ended up chasing all of his children and his wife down, unliving them, then going across to that property and wrote that the devil told him to do it. And then once he was done doing it, the devil needed him. So he had to unlive himself. So then across the way on that lot, he then did it to himself. And so
that's
I went
worse
there
than Amityville.
Yeah, it was intense. Like, yeah.
Because that DeFeo guy didn't kill himself. He just went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that the devil made him do it.
And this man believed this, and he did it to his wife, and his one child was down the stairs with the mom, and then the other one was upstairs, and the whole thing was the devil made him do it. It was like in the early 1900s.
What are your thoughts then on like demonic possession and stuff? Like, because we can't talk about paranormal without that coming up, because I do think that, like with the Amityville thing, he was like, oh, the devil, was giving me message. He was sleeping in the basement, and supposedly there was something down there with him. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, like demons versus ghosts versus, like guardian angels or whatever. But I think even within the paranormal, there are camps of like, okay, deceased loved ones, check. Guardian angels, check. Demons, check. It's like there are different, and demons that pretend to be your grandma, check. It's like, what are we actually dealing with here?
So I'm sure you guys won't find this weird at all because it's me, but I studied into learning how to become an exorcising priest, because there are ways that as a paranormal investigator with the right backing and teaching within their schooling, you can work for a parish and work with a priest, and they will send you out to like do an investigation first to see if we're dealing with a possession, someone that's mentally ill, so on and so forth. I looked into the exorcising and doing the exorcisms myself. And I also looked into demonology, because I have known people, I have seen them for myself, that these dark demon spirits do exist, and they do possess the living without the living even sometimes being aware. And it comes upon us in different ways. And so for me, seeing that, for instance, I'll tell you an account. I was working in a location, investigating a location. And every time I go on an investigation, just because I was baptized Catholic, it's just kind of like my little like, hey man, I'm going to just protect myself against these dark beings, because I do believe even in native cultures, there are dark beings that have roamed this shell of a rock before any life had formed, as almost like condemned spirit soul trapped here. And that's talked a lot in their teachings. So those entities, they're called spirit jumpers too. So when somebody's intoxicated and drunk, it allows those spirits to jump into one's body as a spirit jumper, and it will take over you, which is very fascinating. There's so much to it. It's freaking awesome for another show. But I was wearing my rosary in this location one night, and we knew we were dealing with the demon, and Nobody, not even the people I was with. It's something I do for myself. It was it's just a connection to me and my grandmother, who was very connected spiritually. She knew all the ways to protect yourself in these environments. And so it's one of those things that's like, I just know I'm protected. Right. And I feel very empowered with it, whatever. And so we were talking through the portal and immediately said it didn't like me. And it's called me out by my name. And it's not uncommon for me to go into location and my name is said and spoken multiple times on the portals or any device. And I don't really buckle at it. I'm like, okay, well, who are you and what do you want? Why don't you like me? What is it about me you don't like? And they're like, Brittany, don't antagonize. I'm like, no, I know what this is. And I want it to speak to me. What is it about me that you don't like? And it came back, your rosary, immediately. And I just went, oh, you don't. And my friends are like, what rosary? What is it? What? And I'm like, oh. So I like pull it out from underneath my shirt and they're like, holy shit. And I said, now might be the time for you guys to step aside and let me handle this thing because this thing is dark. And it like went right to me. Like, I don't like you because you think you're better than me type deal. And it was a very intense night. We were looking for an unmarked grave and we luckily found that unmarked grave.
So what made you not want to do that anymore? Because I feel like that's badass.
I still do it.
Like
I do
Ed
it.
and Lorraine Warren type badass with your blonde hair going in, just kicking the shit out of demons and stuff.
I do it. I still do it. It just depends on the case. I like I said, one of the cases I worked was 3 months was a possession case. And I
3 months.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You couldn't get it out of him?
No, sometimes if the host is too far gone, it doesn't matter what fighting you do on your side. If they continue to bring it back themselves willingly, and they willingly tell you that they are fine and there's nothing wrong with it and their spirits are good, there's only so much you can do. It
Hold on.
sometimes has to come
I have
down
a
to the
question.
person.
So you say they're willingly bringing it back. How? I know, sometimes people say that you can do different things and it opens you up. You're more susceptible or lower vibration to demonic possessions or certain occult practices or whatever. But in your case here, what was it that was bringing them back in?
They were susceptible to children's spirits and they believed that they were taking care of children's spirits from a dark spirit. And so these demons were portraying themselves as children. So for me personally, from my personal experience and work in this field, there are no such thing as children's spirits. These are all demonic spirits preying on your darkest weakness. So if you are very empathetic person or caring, kind person, immediately you're going to open up to a child. So when a child spirit comes in the room, it's immediately your guard is down. You feel like you have to save it. You feel like you have to make sure that this child's okay. And most of the time, by the time you get to the bottom of it and you make that demon say its name, you've now discovered that it's not a child at all. And it was just disguising. Like for me, that's one of my biggest attacks as a mom. It goes after me and my children every time. So that's a guard that I have to do always against them. And I've seen some really dark entities. One I've seen myself that it tried to take away my sight. That's how dark it tried to possess over top of me. And I had to get rid of it. Like it literally tried to take away my vision in an investigation. And it's called when you're bending. It's when you're bending. It's literally you're bending into their dimension and everything almost kind of turns like a purple haze. And you're completely bent into their realm and you see things. I mean, there's a lot of accounts and Brooke, Troy can also tell you about the account that we had together where that was an experience as well. Like, yeah, it's once you're there, you've got to be strong because if you're not, they will even unknowingly come and attach themselves. So a lot of people that deal with oppressions and things like that, these are still types of attacks from a spiritual place. And it's learning how to detach ourselves from those cords of those spiritual beings and how to protect ourselves from them.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of all these demons. What are your thoughts, Britt, on curses of haunted dolls?
Oh, JJ.
Haunted dolls, I think, is just a way to make money. But I will say
these curses aren't real. Is that what you're telling me?
I think so. In honesty, the spiritual plane, if it's energy driven, if there's something in it, like when you take the case of Annabelle, the original Annabelle, the owners of Annabelle allowed the spirit in their home and asked them to go into the doll of Annabelle. So you're giving it a carrier, you're giving it a physical thing and you're allowing it. You're telling it. It's like, think of the mentality of like a vampire. You can't let a vampire in your house, can't cross the threshold unless you say you're welcome into my home. It's the same thing as a demonic being. So anytime I leave a place that I know is demonic, I immediately say, you cannot follow me home. You're not welcome on my property. I have a bubble, a hedge of protection on my property. You're not welcome to come. And so it's immediately letting them know I have that invisible salt, if you will, around my house. They're not welcome here. And if they even try, I can sense them and they're gone. You know what I mean? Like I take control over what is mine.
Sure.
You're not coming after mine.
Sure.
So if I willingly say to a spirit, which they thought was a spirit child again, and Lorraine was like, oh no, but it was like a spirit child. They willingly said, go into the doll, which was a giant Raggedy Ann doll, right? And I hate Raggedy Ann because of this story.
Right.
I remember like being a kid and I was like, no, dolls, no. Like I remember like, get those things away from me, you know? And like even my husband jokes and he's like, Chucky, you could just freaking drop kick that doll. And I was like, could you though? Because he's got knives and he like,
dude,
comes up
he's
behind you,
murderous
you know?
as fuck.
Like my husband's
There's
like,
no
just drop
taking
kick
him
him
down.
Yeah.
That's JJ's, the one that's haunted him.
Yeah. So that's supposedly, well, I mean, that's the character basis of Chucky is Robert the Doll.
Yes,
with Robert
and
the Doll?
my buddy, yes, and Robert the Doll is actually in Key West. They have him glass cased up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so Robert,
they don't warn folks of it though. I'll tell you what, you might be a mound guy, a mound dude like myself, wandering into an old Civil War fort looking for some history, build on a mound, and find yourself cursed by a haunted for the next 12 or 14 years.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that with Robert, you're safe. They did a ritual to protect the people that come to see him. He has the salt. They did the prayer scripture protection with the glass. So you can go see Robert. Everything is fine. Robert is cute in the glass.
You're not supposed to take a picture with him though, right? Isn't that the deal? Like, so I took a picture with him. I didn't ask. That's what I mean by the curse of Robert the Doll. I was like, cursed dolls. That's ridiculous. I'll take a picture with this thing.
Next day he woke up with he's had
I'm not kidding you. I'm convinced.
Years.
Yeah, I'm convinced I've been cursed by Robert the Doll. This past December I finally came to terms with it and I wrote him a letter. You know, see how that hasn't been working out too well though since then, if you ask me. But find out.
He's not
over the long term. We'll find out.
He hasn't read it yet.
It's gonna be like, do you want to play? Do you want to come play with
me?
From Key West? Want to go for a dive, JJ?
It is interesting though, because that whole room down there, when I remember going down there, the whole room was filled with letters from folks apologizing to Robert.
Writing.
So it seems like he's had quite a he's a prolific haunted doll, that Robert.
There's so many people that are like, I didn't ask to take his picture. I didn't tell him that he could. Well, and the other mistake that people make in some of those letters is they take a rock from the fort. And that's a big no-no. You never take anything from any place of energy like that. And so a lot of those letters were like, I'm sorry, Robert, like talking to Robert, like he owned the fort. It's like, I'm sorry that I took the rock and I hope that you will leave me alone now or whatever, you know, but it's that unwillingness. And it's also this isn't real BS thing. And it's the no respect in a sense to that entity. And it more or less becomes a taunter, like to say, really? Okay, I'll show you.
Is that why they tell you not to take rocks and stuff from the national parks?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Girl.
Interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm sitting here.
I don't take it from anywhere.
Smoky Mountains.
I don't take a rock from anywhere except the beach. That's the only place. I do not, but I won't. Not from any haunted establishments, not from any historic establishments. Too much energy, too much bloodshed, and you don't know what happened on that exact rock, and you don't know what you're bringing home, especially like in Gettysburg. Don't take anything from there.
Because they hold memories and stuff like granite.
Quartz is the largest one to hold any memory.
Yeah.
If you have enough of it, you can power it and it will play back a video, which is what they're basically trying to do right now. So that's why. So like on a completely different quick topic, my work in Gettysburg was because of the investigation I did with how much quartz crystals are underneath the ground of Gettysburg. During the lightning storm is anytime a thunderstorms and lightning storms are upticking the energy, that is when the most visible ghosts are seen in the plane, when the moisture and the elements are heightened. And that's because the vibrations and the electricity have basically energized the quartz crystals, and it's basically playing back what had happened. So you're actually seeing the soldiers really, but it's playing back from the memory of those quartz. Now there's other things that happen there that I looked into. But as far as just the quartz crystals go, yeah. And it's enough to build a skyscraper in New York. That's how much quartz is in there, and limestone.
You know, I just had somebody on the show who was talking about, because I asked where was one of the weirdest places you've ever been, or if like favorite places you've investigated, and he said Gettysburg, and I was like, oh, cool. And so he said he was on one of the investigations they were on. They were on this like tour. They collaborated with a group up there, and he just started taking pictures at night on the battlefield. Well, I guess his flash was on, and then all of a sudden they started getting shot at. And basically what they did was trigger the ghosts. And because during the Battle of Gettysburg, like at nighttime, they knew where to fire when they saw the musket flash. And so his phone's over there flashing, and it triggered these ghosts, and they started getting shot at by the Gettysburg ghosts. Yeah.
Oh.
Someone just told me that.
Traumatizing the ghost.
Right.
Let them
Even in
live.
the afterlife, they got PTSD.
Let them sleep. Right? No shit.
Something I wanted to ask you, Brett, I was like a little bit kind of going back like 5 minutes ago, but it was just something I was wondering. When you were doing these exorcisms, were you doing them with like Catholic priests? The one that
I've never actually performed an exorcism.
Okay, no, I'm saying the people that were there that were doing it. I thought you said one took like 3 months.
No, so the case I was working on that with 2 other individuals, and nobody was a priest. There was no priest involved. We wanted to bring a priest in. That person told me that they wanted God nowhere near their establishment. The person we spoke to at the time, we knew we weren't talking to the person. That person specifically said very clearly they did not want God. So we can't force upon the work of an exercise or removal like that when in that case we aren't even welcome. So we can do the work from beyond, but it still has to come from the host.
Gotcha. The only reason why I asked is because I did see there was somebody, I think it was a priest who does exorcisms, and he had he was talking about like how long they took, or I guess the host was asking him questions about an exorcism, and he mentioned it took a while. And it was like, does it normally take that long? He said, sometimes this and that. And he had said that he had a question, and I mean, I guess this doesn't sound good, but he said that that stuff also only works as well as like the power of the church is working. So like even if the faith behind Catholicism and the power of it is starting to crumble, the exorcism is not going to work that well anymore either, or it could take a lot longer. Which is why I was asking maybe if you were dealing with the Catholic.
That's
right.
interesting.
I was wondering
That's wild, right?
Behind that,
it would have to come from the priest that's in charge of that particular exorcism. So if his faith is shaken and he's not strong in his own faith to perform the exorcism, then it would fail.
Oh, sure,
because it would find its weakness. It has nothing to do with the church. It would be that particular parish or that particular priest that's handling the case. If he is not strong enough, or he feels someone on his team is not strong enough, because the fear is if you go in and you're dealing with the particular demon, right? Because the demon will have to say its name. And once you have its name, you have power over it. So the priest has to be able to get to that part. But what the demons will do is they will prey on every single person in the room. So if you're not strong, and you're not strong confidently to know you're just targeting me, this is all fake, this isn't real, it will prey on you in a sense of your darkest secret that no one knows about, your fears, your deepest. It will try to sabotage you into doubt. The moment you have doubt, it now can jump to you. So the priest will not want you present in the room if you're not strong enough, because it doesn't want it leaving one host and go to one of their people or the person involved. So a lot of times when doing an exorcism, family members are not allowed in any of the rooms, because family will be like, oh my God, what's happening to my child? Because they do constort, they vomit, they do things, their bodies. Think of venom to its host. So when it starts to be extracted out, the host is going to experience a lot of physical things leaving itself because it's attached to the soul of the person. So there's a lot of energy happening there, and it happens. So it takes a very strong priest to be able to say, I know what I'm up against, and I'm going to do this. And sometimes priests won't even let certain people in the room if they know there's a little shroud of doubt. They won't do it.
That reminds me of the Exorcist movie, the original one.
Yeah.
Because he's a doubter, Damien, and it jumps into him, and then he jumps out the window and kills himself,
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look into the Ed and Lorraine Warren case where they actually went to the court with the possession of the young boy.
The devil
it was,
made me do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
That whole case. And there's a great documentary on it for those that don't know. It's on Netflix. But it does explain how if you have doubt, it's all it needs to prey on you to then attach itself to you, because any demonic entity will prey on your weakest part. That's just what it does. And then it will whisper to you. And so, like what Brooke said earlier, how is it knowingly bringing it back? It will convince the host it is gone. And what you're hearing is a guide or a spirit guide or an angel. And it's telling you that it's good, and it's feeding you those thoughts. And what you think are your thoughts are actually coming from this entity, making you think, oh, my house is clear. I'm okay. Everything's fine. And I'm good now. And no, I have good spirits in the house now. Everything is good. Everything is light. But it's not. It's giving you that false perception until it has you back where it wants you. Because it never wants to lose possession of you. It wants your soul. Period. End of day. That's what it wants. So the moment you start drifting from it, or you meet people that are trying to remove you from it, it will devour you even more and make you very either sick, too hard to be around, just different elements. Your lifestyle changes. You do things you normally wouldn't do. You become very solitary. You don't like being around people so much anymore. They want you isolated so that they can eventually have you do something to yourself that permanently gives them your soul.
I think there's like maybe, you can disagree or agree, but there's like levels to it almost, because I swear I've worked with some straight up
That's
demons in my life. It's like people that you just cannot, you're like, what the fuck? And I mean, they're not like riding
this Hobby
around.
Lobby?
You're like, dude, for sure there's some demons working at Hobby Lobby. But
in
I think
secret,
there's like levels to it. And I think like childhood trauma, rape, things like that, you can open you up to getting like a little passenger inside you, and you don't even know it.
It forms an entity. Any type of trauma like that eventually forms a type of entity.
Lucy Rose in the comments just pointed to parasitic stuff. I was going to compare it to Toxoplasma gondii, which as it turns out is pretty common in the world. And it makes the rats or mice have less fear of the smell of the cat. And so it'll approach the feline instead of having that natural fear of. And with humans, it makes us less afraid of extreme circumstances. Which maybe that's good. I don't know. So I feel like in the case of that parasite, it kind of lends like a little bit of, hey, you can do it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Do the gusto. And maybe poor decision making with that manner of thinking too. But it's the spiritual parasites are very much like that too. They'll psych you out with some kind of belief that you can make the jump, and maybe you obviously you can't. You would be able to see that and type of thing. And so it's like they give you a little bit of this feeling of reward when in actuality they're just leeching off of you.
Have you seen those parasites under a microscope, Ethan? They look like demons, like Old Testament ass-looking demons. You need to look at them shits. And, I do a parasite cleanse once a month because I'm really into this. I think parasites are demons, and you ingest them into your body through all kind of weird food and shit. Pregnant people can't even be around litter boxes because of that toxoplasmosis, whatever. I got a little shithead cat. He's not my cat. He lives here. He was here before I got here, so I got to put up with him. He shits outside. He pisses outside. He don't come into the living room. This is his area. If there's something going down, he can stay in here temporarily, but he don't come into the house. I'm so weird about parasites.
Should we call ICE on this cat? Is this an undocumented immigrant? What are we talking about?
Oh my God.
I have like a little sunroom that I'm in right now, but he doesn't cross the threshold into the house. He can stay in the sunroom. That's it. But these parasites, and I take there's all kinds of things you can take, like psyllium husk and like all these things that acts as like a micro sandpaper to your digestive tract to like clear all those parasites out. And I watched one woman, she went to go get a colonic, and she had a parasite. It was like 5 feet long coming out her
Ugh.
asshole.
Yikes.
And it wouldn't
Yikes.
come out. And they were like pushing on her stomach and doing all this stuff to try to get this parasite come out. And she said, in the name of Jesus, this parasite is going to come out. And it just like squirted out of her ass into the tube, down the hatch. And that's why
Down
I
the
say
hatch.
these parasites are
Did
spiritual.
they burn it?
Dude, it goes into some kind of a collection tank, like whatever you do at the
Yikes.
colonic place. But they
Ghostbusters
are
style.
spiritual.
Yeah,
They're
for
spiritual.
But-
And they're demons.
When you were talking about, trauma being a gateway, shameless
Yes.
plug here, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, just saying. And I think therapy is really important. I know I was going through some stuff from some trauma that had happened in my childhood. I felt like it was a spiritual attack on my dreams. I was having these really like prophetic sort of dreams, like where I was fighting something and I knew this was not a regular dream. Long story short, it pushed me to getting into therapy. And I started going to therapy, and crazy enough, like the dream transformed and like I had the power. And I fully believe that through trauma and through indoctrination and different things, that we're being attacked at so many different levels within our society. I'm reading a book right now called Return of the Gods, and it talks about a cultural possession, like on a cultural level.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting all the different ways.
That's
So if you,
powerful.
right. So if you are
Yep.
weak, you are susceptible to these things. That's why it's so important if something has happened to you to not, remain a victim, but to take that and transform it and heal and become, a fighter and fight against it, because there's so many people who don't make it past that. And then you
Mhm.
do just see that darkness just kind of consume them. But
Consume them.
yeah, the cultural possession is really interesting. I'm really excited about this book. We should definitely talk about it. The Return of the Gods. It is super cool.
Well, we're inundated on every level through our diet, through the things we consume
Mhm.
in media, music, movies, everything that we consume is parasitic in a way. And then things that happen to us throughout our lives kind of make these little doorways in our mind, and it allows just weird shit to come in. And sometimes you don't even realize it, you've been hijacked, your body or your mind. So yeah, I think it's actually kind of scary. I know some people, it's like Britt worked on a guy for 3 months and then he was like, just fuck off, I guess. But I mean, to admit that you have a problem too, because a lot of people just walk around with like these blinders on, like, oh no, I'm cool, everything's good. I have sleep paralysis and night terrors and XYZ, but it's all good in the hood.
It's totally normal.
Mhm.
Right. Like JJ here, for example, he's so fucked up. He's got a fucking curse on him from Robert the Doll. He can't get it off of him. You need to go have a colonic, JJ.
Is that what my
pretty
problem is?
sure-
Colonics?
Yes, you need to get your butthole cleared out, drain the pipes, get all the
Yikes.
parasites out.
I think I might side with the curse of Robert the Doll rather than letting someone run around my butthole. Sorry about that. Joel. Appreciate
Can I
the-
ask, how did you know
Appreciate the
you were
recommendation.
cursed? What happened
What's-
to where you were like, what point were you like, oh crap, I'm cursed?
That's a good question. I suppose it was the culmination of activities in my life over the subsequent tenor. I was really around year 6, I'd say. It was around the first week of December every year.
6
starting
years
around
it
year
took you
6.
to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm a
6
Scots
years.
Irishman. I'm pretty stubborn. I'll fight myself if there's nothing else to fight. You know what I mean? So so around year 6, I was like, this is a shitty year. This could have worked out better. And I was like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done to change these things? I'm like, well, it's not like I'm not like, parachuting or skydiving or something, doing things ridiculous, or I'm a, drug user, these kind of things. So, I eat healthy, I exercise, et cetera. So, and then, just random things that you really can't account for health wise, life wise, et cetera. So year 6, I was like, man, this kind of seems strange. And then by, I'd say about year 12 this past year, I finally was like, all right, each December, that first week of December, I'm like, all right, let's review this situation. And then this past year, I was like, that's it, fuck it, I'm just gonna write this stupid doll letter. This is ridiculous.
It's
Maybe
something you could
have
do
a
too. And
shitty life, JJ.
if you really think you're cursed and you think it came from the doll, the best thing to do is try and get into a meditation, to a very deep state of meditation. Visualize the doll and visualize a cord between you and that doll. and imagine yourself cutting it and telling him he no longer has control over your life anymore. You're taking right to your life back.
Thank you, ma'am. I can certainly try that. It's worth a try, especially as opposed to anyone written around with some colonoscopies or whatever.
It's not a colonoscopy, asshole. It's a colonic. They squirt water in your ass and then they clear
that's
it
worse.
out.
Come on, you're not making it sound better. No, I appreciate that, Brett. I'll certainly try that. I do honestly. I do joke about it, but that's what I'd like to joke about everything in life. So I like to find humor
Me
even in
too.
the darkest corners.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
yeah. You kind of have to, you know?
Especially when you got a haunted doll, creeping up on you for 12, 13 years. You know what I mean?
And just figured
Yes.
it out after
Yes.
6 years
Well,
of the damn thing.
To be fair, I was just ignorant. I was aware of it. I just didn't want to accept it. You know what I mean? It was a stage of denial at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say something about a comment Britt made earlier because I grew up in a haunted house for real. And I've talked about my experience on several different podcasts. And when people hear it, they'll ask me to come on and do the story again. And I always love sharing it because it makes me feel a bit better about it. Like this really happened to me.
Sure.
But it does open your mind up in a way where your reality isn't reality anymore. And I think it did make me more susceptible to, I have a conspiracy theory podcast. I like to talk about paranormal. I like to talk about all kinds of stuff, but it almost makes me wonder if I didn't have that experience as a young kid, learning that there's more to reality than we've been told, if I would even be interested in some of this stuff. So it's like you were saying, it's not even necessarily that like UFO and like paranormal stuff or cryptids go together, but it does make me more open to seeing those things because, as an adult, I've had experiences and like seeing stuff, and I'll ask my friends and say, oh, I wish I could see something like that. I never have. And I don't know, it makes me wonder. It's like you have the initial experience and then everything after that is just kind of like you expect weird things to happen to you almost. And they do.
You're just more open. Yeah. I mean, we're taught from a young age to be closed off to all of that, from the fluoride in our toothpaste that's constantly shutting our third eye down. It's a toxin that's in our body to, I mean, growing in our water. Yeah. Even in certain areas, I mean, mine probably, but I filter that crap. But you sit there and you look back over your life. Like, I'm thankful for my family, especially my grandmother. She was so spiritual and like so open to all of that, but she was always teaching me how to just protect myself in every situation that I had control, not them, and having someone to talk to and and I hate using the word imagination, but that's really the key, because the spiritual world uses the part of our brain that allows imagination to create, because they have to go in there for you to actually visualize and see them and be creative, because your analytical side of the brain will shut it down. And when you go back through history, we have been indoctrinated that none of this is real, none of this is true. And if you have any type of gift, no matter what that gift is, you were insane and you were put into an insane asylum and they were drilling it out of you with different types of tools and techniques. And you were just going to be drugged up because you were not fitting into their perfect society. You needed to be removed, right? So if you weaken someone's mind, you have full control over them. The moment you have somebody with a strong mind, they start finding the holes in your so-called theories. They start finding the holes in your ideas and your agendas and your plots, to where now you can't control that individual. So somebody with telepathy, get rid of that person. We can't teach that. That's got to go. Somebody that has the ability to move objects or bend objects, get rid of them. They've got to go. Because now you're showing these people that they might have that gift too. That can't happen. And we're all given
or that
gifts.
It might be common,
more common than
they
not.
definitely don't want any people to think that it's common, which is like why I think they got to start kids off like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. It's like, okay, they're in kindergarten now. Let's send them into the concentration fucking camp. And it just like drains their little spirit out of them.
They're in a concrete building. Their feet are not on grass anymore. They feel no soil throughout their day. They're not connected to the earth. They're in concrete buildings, no sunlight. Exactly, JJ. They're constantly being indoctrinated by one book to the next book. And this is how it has to be, for 8 hours of a day. And if the parents are trying to work their butts off to supply food for them and a life for them and a roof for them, the kids aren't getting the stimulus with their parents outside or being free of that. They're put onto a tablet. They're put onto something. You know, when we look back just to the 80s, how much our lifestyle has changed. I talked to my folks and my folks said, no, we actually would have to have breaks during the day to go do physical work outside in school. We don't do that anymore. There are things that have been completely removed to structure a very controlled society, to give them full control over us. And honestly, and I'm saying this from a personal outlook, my son is on the spectrum. Learning him, watching his brain, and not by the spectrum of severe, he's high functioning with sensory processing disorder. And watching my son and how his brain processes the world from color to sound to everything, and learning other children like him and seeing that they speak to one another without using their words, but they will have full conversations where my son will say, well, he was telling me this. And I'm like, how? You weren't speaking. Okay. They literally know a type of telepathy within themselves that they can talk to one another. It's really fascinating, especially when you talk to the therapist with it. And being a mother of a child with that, I now believe that they are the normal ones and we're not. I believe that we were so controlled into a narrative when we were younger. How many of us from the 80s to 90s, when you would hear somebody was autistic, you're like, oh no, right? You were told that it didn't matter what part of the spectrum they were on. You just thought, oh, that poor child, like they must live with nothing in a chair in a room somewhere in pure solitary, right? But that wasn't the case. We were being lied to about it. There was multiple things that we all have. I hate noise. Doesn't mean I'm on the spectrum. It's just something within my brain with frequencies, certain noises I can't handle. But if I was to be diagnosed now, they would have a bunch of verbiage for what I had. But I think it's the part of me that's heightened that I'm not supposed to squash down. I need that heighten of sound so that I'm more apt to hearing different levels of frequency that our world around us want to eliminate. Like, for instance, to not get off topic, but quickly about sound. Our devices we used in the early 90s and 2000s, when we were doing EVP recording, it was done through a type of recorder that you'd put the actual like cassette tape in, put it in, and then you'd hit I have it. Where did I have it? It's here somewhere. And you literally, because I still use old school. You know why? Because it recorded every single frequency in that room. It did not silence a single frequency. That's why, to date, they are still the best recorders to capture electric oh, forget it. It's gone. Brooke, save me. Somebody say it. Phenomenon voices, right? EVPs. It's backwards. You guys know my brain is shutting down. It's after 9. Anyway, when the new technology came out where they started using electrical for EVPs, when you actually get into the coders, do you know that it went from, let's just say, I'm just going to throw out numbers so that we all understand, like 50 frequency waves to 12. It would drown out all those other frequencies because it felt it needed to focus on whatever was just speaking directly to the closest to the mic, not what else was in the background, the ambient sound. But unfortunately, by doing that, you're removing all the layers of frequency where we don't know where that spirit is crossing through in that element. Because even when I was taught, it was like if our time could slow with angels' time, we'd be able to see them. So everybody's living in a different frequency in a different time. So if we drown out half of those frequencies, we're losing the sounds. We're losing them. So I refuse to use all the newer too advanced tech because they're programmed to eliminate and isolate different sounds, and we're losing those frequencies. So it's the same thing with our brain. They're purposely rewiring and removing elements that we need to basically help us to grow and have our brain continue to grow and as a society grow.
What the hell happened?
Wow. I guess
Nick,
we were getting
what did
too
you
real.
do?
Yeah.
That was so well said. She
Oh, I
got
thought I cut
off.
out for a second. Okay, I'm still here.
Yeah. Wow. This was weird. Okay.
She was really getting to a good
She
point.
was dropping
too.
some
I was about to
bombs.
say, dude, I was fucking out of my
Oh,
Damn.
Okay.
No, she
That was
at
wild.
work.
Britt, oh my God. You were just getting to the good part.
Government talk, baby. They shut me down every time.
Yep.
Not joking at all. Something I say, it happens a
The
lot.
Smithsonian's here. They're in the chat.
It's
Owned
funny.
by the government. Just
Oh
saying.
God, I need to show up.
That was a great present. That was a great thought, Brittany.
Thank
Mhm,
you.
It really
Sorry
was.
I
It
got
was.
kicked off, but
My
It's okay.
it is what
Well,
it
they
is.
also they hit kids through like the school provided lunches too. It's like when I
Sure.
was when
Yes.
I was in school, like in the early or the late 90s, early 2000s,
I
they
did know.
didn't offer you water as part of the lunch. It
Yeah.
was like 3 different kinds of milk or orange juice. You didn't get water. You went from what 7 in the morning until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon with no fucking water. If you got water, it was like the rusted out nasty hepatitis drinking fountain that like all the
Yeah.
kids put their whole mouth on. It's like I'm not
Yeah.
drinking that after like that fat kid just put his entire mouth over it. Like I would be so dehydrated, and then I go home and it was like, oh, drink a Coke, drink a, it's like
All sugar.
it just it just became popular
processed
for
and
like
sugar.
kids to take their own water bottles and shit to school. I would have
Mhm.
loved to have my own water bottle. But anyways, my point is they've poisoned us in every way possible
Yep.
through what we're learning, through the things that they're feeding us, everything. If you look at a cafeteria lunch from a public school, it looks like some shit from like San Quentin. Like, why am I
Yeah.
eating prison food? It's like,
Right.
bean curd, nasty ass fucking. It looks like the meat was dehydrated and you just added water to it and mixed it up. I mean, this is what they're feeding our kids, and then they're getting regurgitated all this history bullshit. This is this, and the Egyptians built the pyramids with
Right.
carrier pigeons and Hebrew slaves with whips and chains. This is what we're giving our kids, and then we wonder why
Yeah.
they grow up and be Jeffrey Dahmer.
Because of the school lunch.
I love the comeback.
It's a
I
bit
love the
extreme with-
callback to this. Yeah, it's like, and that's Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Hilarious,
Right.
Julia.
Ted Bundy.
Freaking A. That's right.
School lunches
Freaking
did it,
school
huh, Julia?
systems. Yeah, it's the school
The
system.
The schools, the whole
Turned 'em
system,
all.
the whole system turned them
Well,
into
and
serial
there's-
killers.
I feel like one thing that they can't argue, like it's an indicator that, wait, you kind of want to hurt us. It's 2025, and I don't know of any food packaging that's safe. Plastic
Right.
cans have BPA. I mean, glass. Okay, there's some glass bottles of various foods that are safe, but it's like, how are we have every packaging is promoting more poisons? It's just insane.
Biowarfare, baby.
Just-
Biowarfare. If I was going to try to take somebody out, I wouldn't even have to touch them. I wouldn't even have to be in the same
No.
fucking room. I would just need to find out where they keep their water or what fucking Starbucks they go to every other Monday, and I could kill them without being insane. That's why biowarfare is like the most important topic that I feel like isn't getting talked about enough right now, is because we're getting attacked on every level, spiritual, physical, everything. We're
Yep.
getting sprayed. Listen at my nose.
Well, did
This
you
isn't
see
normal. I'm
about,
getting sprayed.
even the clothes that we're wearing, the fabrics that we put onto our
Yes.
bodies, that the highly has the chemicals in it that are causing infertility. And if you look at what's in Victoria's Secret bras or what's in underwear, it is causing a higher infertility rate. And I think for the first time in how many years are we
Yeah.
down in the United States for births? The birth rate is declining.
Yeah, detergent's awful, even for the just washing your clothes in it, but it's even worse when they put it on your school cafeteria food. I got some French toast in elementary school. They had, instead of powdered sugar, it was some Tide detergent. That's a real nightmare. That'll cost them a couple Dahmers.
So maybe it's not Robert the Doll, JJ. Maybe
That's
this
what I was
goes
thinking.
way further
Maybe
back.
it's the school
bud.
cafeteria lunches. We're onto something here, I think.
I'm telling you, there's so much to it. So much.
And again, an even better reason to use a colonic, JJ. You got to flush all that 1987
flush out that
pizza
Tide.
We're taking
out
it
of your
back, man.
beehole.
Taking it back.
Back to that. All right. Was there any questions anybody else wanted to ask? I think maybe we could probably wrap it up here.
Are you working on anything new, Britt?
I do
Good
have
question.
some stuff in the works that I can't mention or talk about yet. But as soon as I can talk about it, I sure will. I mean, there's a lot going on. just a lot. And if anybody wants to follow, I try and give tidbits of information through my Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. That damn thing. I'm frustrated as shit with TikTok. I said
Same.
nope, not doing it. So I'm just on Instagram, but I'm very active on there. I love interacting with everyone and talking to people. I'm not one of those that think I'm above anybody, so I don't give a shit. I'll talk to everyone. I'm cool with, I like talking to people because I like theories and conversations. So that's where I'm the most active. And then I have a Facebook page, but it's mostly just private for family and stuff like that. Again, too much social media. I can't handle it all. I'm like, just give me one outlet to talk to people. That's like, I come from the MySpace era. Okay. So
Me
just give me
too.
one.
I like that.
Give
I
me
like
one,
that.
just one avenue. But yeah, so that's about it. Like just hanging out, taking care of some stuff.
What is
doing
your
stuff.
Instagram, by the way?
It's Brittany _Barbieri _ So pretty simple. Just
Nice.
I couldn't get just simple Brittany Barbieri because apparently there's another one out there. What?
Created by the Smithsonian.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, they're gonna take my stuff, you know. Yeah, no. And once we get off this, I'm actually picking up my my friend Marissa Tejas from Belize. So she's coming to town. So I've got to go and pick her up from the airport tonight. So it's gonna be fun.
Oh,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So just a lot. It's like there's always something going on. Always something.
For sure.
all right. Well,
I had
yeah,
I had one comment, Nick, to follow up on. Great conversation as always. Great to meet you there, ma'am. And fellow occult rejects as always. Great convo. If you all or any of the folks of the interwebs wanted to visit that Walmart I was talking about with the Mound Museum, it's in Canton, Georgia. You find yourself traveling between Atlanta and Chattanooga anytime soon, you need to take a Walmart break. Stop in there, check out a Mound Museum while you're at it.
I'm going to be heading to
Canton.
Atlanta in a couple weeks. I'm going to be like,
Wow.
we're stopping off.
Literally same. I literally wrote that down.
Yeah, going to Canton. I actually
not
like
a
Georgia.
paid-for
There's a lot of
advertisement,
fun
but,
spots there. No, but we're going.
No, there's a lot of cool sites in
Georgia
that
is
region for sure.
haunted. Yeah, it's super haunted.
That northern area.
Was it Georgia? I want to say it is Georgia. I'm going to look it back up later. But if you Google, I do think it's Georgia. Was it Georgia I was in? Yes. Near about an hour north from Jekyll Island, the werewolf girl.
Oh.
Yeah, you can go to her grave. Definitely look up her story. It's really great.
Ooh.
That's all I'm going to say because I want you all to look into her. It's a great story. That the legend is like, was she really a werewolf? What was she? Blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. It's good stuff.
Nice.
cool. Definitely check that out.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll let everybody just remind there's everybody's shows and stuff. Julia, we'll go with you. Julia, let everybody know where they can find your work again.
Thank you, Nick. It was a great conversation tonight, Britt. I loved it. Love everything you said. We'd be besties if we weren't millions of miles apart.
You can still be digital besties. Jeez,
yeah,
Julia.
digital besties. There we go. Thanks for everybody putting up with my voice tonight too. I sound like Fran Drescher, but hopefully it'll be cleared up by the next time we get together. I'm Julia, Cosmic Peach Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and unofficial or official Occult Reject, whichever one you prefer.
Oh, official.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yes, of course. And Brooke, let everybody know where they can find your show, please.
Yeah, you can find me wherever you get your podcast, but Dark Florida Podcast on Instagram. Come over and connect. And yeah, thank you again for having me on. This was great. I love this conversation. I feel like we went down avenues I wasn't expecting, and that's what I love.
Yeah, it's much different than I expected. It went a lot better, actually. JJ, let everybody know what's going on.
Great combo, JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD, live Wednesdays and Fridays with Nick on our Friday show. And once again, not the vice president. Do not vote for me in 2028.
That's, last but not least, Ethan Indigo.
JJ.
That was awesome. Thank you guys for all the information and JJ for all the laughs. The article I just finished is on the Circumpunct as a meditation tool on the Occult Rejects Institute. Brittany, that was wonderful to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. And let everybody know where they can find all your stuff again, please.
yeah, just head over to my Instagram handle, Brittany_Barbieri. It's BRITTANY_Barbieri_. In the links there is my website, my clothing company, and all the things that I am currently attached to, including the Cryptid Women's Society based out of New Zealand, Australia. Lots of good stuff going on. Crocodile Research Foundation is another thing I'm a board member on, a director on, that we handle for education and conservation for crocodile species and anything that lives within the crocodile space. So that would be all animals basically on this planet. And branching out. And it works with our Dr. Marissa Tejas in Belize with the Crocodile Research Coalition, working tirelessly to help save and preserve the species in Belize, as well as all the others, and the mangroves to protect the island. And that's all there on Instagram.
Yes. If people are watching, if they're checking out the video, her name underneath there is her Instagram tag. So it's right there. And I'll leave all the links on the bottom for you. Thank you very much. Like somebody else had said, we talked about a lot of different things. I think Brooke said it. Tons of different things I wasn't expecting. I probably had about 10 other questions about your personal work. Maybe we can get you on it one other day and talk about some other stuff. But thank you again. That was a lot of fun. That was really interesting stuff. Again, I guess I wasn't expecting you to be such a conspiracy theorist as well as a.
I love it.
When you dabble in it all, you have to question.
Yeah, no, well, I know some that aren't. So it was pretty cool. So thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank everybody in the chat. The chat was off the hook. There was a lot of great things going on there. Thank you everybody from all channels. Yeah, and thank you for the other channels that stopped by and said what's up. I appreciate it. And that's the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.